call to the member for Clark.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, this is a good bill. I'll support it, and honourable members have spoken at some length about the merits of the bill. But I'm going to take this opportunity to take have a different response to the bill, and to say that, look, it's good as far as it goes, but it's just another example of how in this country we're always fiddling around the edges. You know, a little bit of a change to early childhood education policy here, a bit of a change to early childhood education funding over there, but we are just fiddling. When what we actually need to do is to take a step back and to look at the big picture and be prepared for bold reform, really bold reform. Just like there was last year with the need to effectively make early child education funding free during a period during the pandemic. And that's what we need to do. We need to take a big step back and we need to say, let's really do early childhood education effectively, and that's by making it universally available and free for any member of the community that needs it. I say that again, let's have free, universal early childhood education in this country. Big and bold. A bit more like what happens in the Nordic and other countries. Because at the moment, it's hard to get, it's expensive, it's targeted for certain sectors of the community. No, let's have free, universal. Let's make it free and readily available for people who are not in the workforce, for people on low incomes, for people on high incomes. Because let's face it, every sector of the community, and this is about community, not economy, every sector of the community has needs that need to be met. For example, someone who's not in the workforce, they might need respite. They might need time without the kids so they can look for children. They might need time without the kids so they can train and be educated to join the workforce. They might need time with the kids out of the workforce because their children have special needs. Or just because they love their children, they want to have some extra time beyond what might be provided through the very short maternity leave provisions in this country. And at the other end of the spectrum, successful people, they should also have a right to access childcare. How else are we going to have equal representation of women at the top levels of the corporate sector? How else are we going to have an equal representation of women on boards of the big corporations? How else are we going to get equal representation of women in this place unless all women, from the most disadvantaged through to the non-working, right through to the most successful women, how else are we going to let them all achieve their potential unless we have free, universal health care in this country? Now, that will, of course, require a big expansion of the early childhood education sector, and it will cost big bucks. The question is, though, can we afford it as a country? And the answer, Deputy Speaker, is of course we can. You know, in a normal financial year, not a pandemic year, but in a normal financial year, the federal government spends about $500 billion. That is just a remarkable amount of money. It's such a large amount of money as to be almost incomprehensible. And where it goes is all about priorities for a government. And I would have said having universal free early childhood education in this country should be a top priority because it's good for parents and especially good for mums. It's very good for the children. All the evidence shows that being in early childhood education is very beneficial for children. Not all children, and there's a lot of good reasons why some parents would not want their children to go into early childhood education. Good reasons. But for a lot of children, and it's certainly my experience with my own daughters, I really saw them blossom or bloom, you know, in the early childhood environment. So yes, we can afford it. And it will give everyone the opportunity to work. Everyone the opportunity to work. And in particular, for more women to join the workforce, which is what many of them want to do. You know, the Productivity Commission estimates that there's something like 165,000 parents in Australia who want to work but are not able to work because they can't afford early childhood education or they can't access early childhood education. That's 165,000 people we could have in the workforce, growing our economy, growing our community, and making our country better in certain ways. I mean, no wonder the Australia Institute estimates that with free childcare, our economy would be $140 billion bigger. In other words, it's not going to cost the federal government money, it's going to make the federal government money. So even if the federal government's not real interested in giving free universal or access to free universal early childhood education to all the parents of the country, surely it should be worrying about the budget bottom line. $140 billion bigger economy if we had free universal childhood education. Frankly, Deputy Speaker, I think that's a slam dunk. And when I'm talking about let's make a quantum leap with early childhood education, when we often refer to it as a way of achieving equality in this country for women, well, again, we're fiddling around the edges a bit here. Because, we tend to have these stovepipes. We talk about sexual assault, and heavens, haven't we spoken about that a lot lately? And the sexual misconduct of men, and for the need for men to improve their behaviour. And we talk about early childhood education, and we talk about gender ratios in the parliament, and we talk about wage disparity. But we're talking about all these bits and pieces. Again, why don't we take a quantum step? And say, we as a community, we as a parliament, you as a government, you need to have a holistic response to gender inequality, and we need to fix it as a country. And it's not going to be fixed with ticking all these boxes like, better childcare, committees in the parliament investigating allegations. What we need to do is have equality in our DNA. Not to be a box for a government department or a minister's office to tick when they're looking at a policy initiative. It needs to be in our DNA, in everything we say, we do, in every policy we formulate, in every bill we pass in this place. It has to be to the goal of genuine equality in this country. Not some tokenism like a minister for women. I mean, what has that achieved? I think that's tokenism. And it's even more obviously tokenism when the Minister for Women wouldn't go out and front that rally on Monday. What an opportunity for the Minister to put her heart where her mouth is and to have gone out and to have spoken to the crowd. Yes, it would have been difficult. Yes, it would have been confronting. Yes, there would have been risks. But wouldn't that have been a strong demonstration? But you know what? If it was in our DNA, Deputy Speaker, the Prime Minister would have gone out there. And yes, there would have been embarrassing photos in the paper the next day. It would have been very awkward. But what a strong act of leadership it would have been. What a strong signal it would have said that, yes, you as a government, we as a parliament, we as a community are going to address the issue of the inequality in this country in the myriad of ways it occurs. So, Deputy Speaker, I won't keep the House too much longer. I just want to make this point really clearly. Let's stop fiddling around the edges when it comes to early childhood education. Let's seriously have a discussion about the merits of universal free childcare in this country and how it would unleash $140 billion of economic activity, how it would put 165,000 people, mostly women, into the workforce if that's what they want to do, how it would improve our community, our society, the fact that parents, if they wanted to, could have their children in early childhood education while they have some respite. Very important, particularly if they're dealing with mental illness. How it would allow parents to spend time with their kids and develop their relationships. How it would allow parents to spend time with their children with special needs. How it would allow parents to go out and look for a job or to train for a job, be educated for a job. And how at the other end of the spectrum, we would find that if everyone had access to the workforce on an equal footing, and if everyone was able to stay at work for the full day, and have a full career, we would find we would have 50% women in senior management roles in our corporations. We would have 50% in here on both sides of the chamber. Oh heavens, Deputy Speaker, there is so much that could be achieved if we had that sort of vision. And it would not cost the government money, because the economy would grow so sharply, so strongly. I reckon the economy would be better off. I reckon the budget would be better off. And another point, Deputy Speaker, that I made, that not only do we need to think boldly about early childhood education, we need to think boldly about achieving equality in this country. And yes, free universal early childhood education would be a building block of achieving equality in this country. But again, it's just a building block when what's actually needed is for us as a community, and us in here in the parliament, and you over there as the government, to not thinking about ticking boxes and tokenism like a minister, and that solves the problem, but thinking about equality being in our DNA, in everything we say, every idea we get, every policy we formulate, every law we pass, that it's all with a mind to achieving equality in this country in all the countless ways it can be achieved. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.